Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode review of The Mandalorian. Today, we are taking a look at Chapter 17, The Apostate, the first episode of Season 3 of The Mandalorian, the long-awaited Season 3 of The Mandalorian, because there totally wasn't this other spin-off show that, replaced Mandalorian in the interim for a year and also continued the story of The Mandalorian at all. It's like, no, this is the first we've seen Mando and Grogu in over a year. It's been like 2 years since we've seen them, and nothing happened in between. So, yeah. That's something I want to talk about just really quick before we even get into this episode, is the previously on segment of this episode does not cover nearly enough. This episode really expects you to have seen the Book of Boba Fett. And if you have not seen the Book of Boba Fett, good luck. Because if you just... this is why I said in my Book of Boba Fett reviews, and I've said since, is that what they should have done is that Boba should have just been another season of The Mandalorian that they include on the Mandalorian page, and then instead of calling it Season 3, they just call it the Book of Boba Fett. So it goes Season 1, Season 2, Book of Boba Fett, Season 3, and that way it just flows, because now, for someone watching this show for the first time, they're going to get to Chapter 16, if they're binging it, haven't seen the show before, they're going to get to Chapter 16, it's going to end, and then they're going to go, oh, I got to find out what happens next, and then they're immediately going to hit next episode without waiting for the after credits stinger, and then it's like, yeah, I know that Boba Fett show was a thing, but I'm going to ignore that for now and just watch the next episode because I need to find out what happens, and then it's just immediately Mando and an N1 starfighter and Grogu in the little child seat in the back and everything, and it's like, wait a second, how did we get here? It's like, oh, maybe there was this Boba Fett show that Mando showed up in that explains some things. So, yeah, it's still an interesting choice to have made Boba Fett, a continuation of Mando. It's something I think is natural, but the way that they presented it as the spin-off show that only focuses on Boba, I think is still a mistake. They should have been more explicit, and by putting it on the Mando watch page, it would have made more sense, because at work there's someone I know that she and her kids are watching this for the first time because she's on this Pedro Pascal kick because of The Last of Us airing concurrently to this, and so she's like, oh, I want to see these other things he's in. I know he's the Mandalorian, so we're going to watch that. So she gets to the end of Season 2. I'm like, well, you need to watch the Book of Boba Fett. She goes, oh, okay. So then we get to work it's a Monday. I'm recording this, putting this out. And she says, oh, the first episode of Mando Season 3 was good, but I was super confused. And I said, well, did you watch Boba Fett? And she went, no. No, we didn't. I'm like, well, there you go. I told you should have watched Boba Fett. It would explain everything, and you wouldn't have any questions going into this first episode. So they really should just put it on the watch page. It can't have been that difficult. And it's like, give it its own watch page if you want, but also include it, or it's like, I mean, it's your website, it's your video player, it's whatever. When Chapter 16 of Mando ends, instead of it being next episode, immediately make it play Book of Boba Fett or something. Just because this is going to confuse people until the end of time now, the way this is set up. So it's just my own mother, who likes Mandalorian, and my dad and I were like, oh, you need to watch Book of Boba Fett with us. She's like, nah, I don't really care. And then she's like, oh, but I do care about the Mandalorian. I'm like, okay, so you need to watch Book of Boba Fett. No, I don't care about Boba Fett. It's like, even when we told her, oh yeah, the Mandalorian's in it, I don't really care. Then she's like, oh, I want to watch Season 1, Episode 3, or Season 3, Episode 1 of Mando. It's like, okay, but you're going to get confused. And then she turns to us at the end and was like, I'm very confused. And it's like, we told you. So it's just, making Boba Fett the Book of Boba Fett be a Season 2.5 of Mando isn't the worst idea in the world. It is really just how they decided to present it, and how that's going to be confusing for Mando Season 3. So that's really all I'm going to say about that, because I don't think it's ever going to get any better unless they do like the watch page thing, which I've been saying they should have done for a year now. So if they do that, then that'll hopefully make it better. But there's nothing they can really retroactively do other than that at this point to make that better. So this is like the last thing I'm going to ever say on the subject, because it's like it is what it is. So into the episode itself. I thought it was a good episode, a basic episode of The Mandalorian. It wasn't, there's nothing in it that really blew my socks off. That was really where the Bad Batch took center stage. But I've got a review coming out on that today as well, so you can hear all my thoughts on Bad Batch and why that one did blow my socks off. But yeah, this was definitely a good episode. It was a good reintroduction to the world of the Mandalorian and everything in the corner of the Star Wars galaxy it takes place in. Obviously, the Mandalorian Covern of the Children of the Watch that we've been following, they've kind of rebuilt their ranks a little bit. The ones that probably fled Navarro, a lot of them probably found their way back to the Armorer and Paz Vizsla. And I really hope they go into this later this season, because I really want to know what the hierarchy is in the Children of the Watch, because clearly the Armorer is the person in charge. And, she's like their priestess or whatever. But then I really want to know at what position does Paz Vizsla hold? Is he like the second in command? Because the first season kind of made it feel like he was just another guy. But then as time has gone on, he's gotten a little more focus. It really has felt like he's more of like a second in command type guy. Because it's like he was barking orders in this episode and everything. And then with the screen time he got in Book of Boba Fett and everything, it feels like that he's maybe like the second in command. So and it's like, who are some of these other Mandos that are there? They have foundlings that they're going through the rituals with the foundlings. They're not allowing them to remove their helmets and everything. All those different things. So I'm really interested in what kind of the hierarchy is with the Children of the Watch here, and what what else is going on with them. So hopefully we learn a teensy bit more about them this season, because just judging by the trailers, it seems like there is going to be kind of a combining of Mandalorian ranks here, which could get interesting. So yeah, cool to see the Children of the Watch again. I like how none of them really had the ingenuity when fighting the big crocodile monster, because it immediately ate someone, which is unfortunate. But so they try their sticky bombs, that doesn't work. They try shooting it, that doesn't work. They try flamethrowers, that doesn't work. They try the rappel cables, that doesn't work. No one thought to throw the sticky bombs down its throat, because it keeps roaring and snapping at you. It's like, just time it right and throw some sticky bombs down its gullet and blow it up from the inside. As soon as blasters stopped working, that would have been like, and its hide was too thick. That would have been one of my first thoughts. Not to draw a comparison to Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I mean, even Drax immediately figured, thought it's like, and his methodology was flawed in jumping into the jaws of the obelisk. But the idea of, it'll be weaker on the inside, chuck some sticky bombs down there, and problem solved. You don't have to wait for Din Djarin to come save you in his hot rod N1 with child in tow. So to a degree, I felt like that scene made that particular group of Mandalorians come off as a little dumb. It's like, they were utilizing the jetpacks and flying around and everything, but that cave entrance was not big enough for that thing to squeeze through, so everyone should have just fallen back in there. And then as it's trying to stick its snout, throwing the sticky bombs in its snout, and then we've got Gator for dinner. So I mean, they get Gator for dinner either way, but it's that whole scene is maybe over a little quicker. And it's like, okay, the hide is indestructible, time to start chucking things down its throat. And it's like, if it it being a cool, giant crocodile was kind of interesting, kind of cool, but I feel like they could have maybe gotten a little more creative with the monster. It's like, maybe if it was a big squid monster or something, instead of a giant crocodile, in which it didn't have an obvious mouth or any obvious, weak points. to chuck thermal detonators down or whatever. Because if it was like a big squid that was coming out of the water and its hide was invulnerable and everything, then that would maybe make it a little more of a difficult challenge, an obvious difficult challenge, and then it's only the firepower of a starfighter that's able to take it out. I don't know. That's it's not really a big deal. It's just a little quibble I had with, it's like, yeah, you all kind of looked a little bit dumb just flying around shooting at this giant crocodile and having no effect whatsoever. We did get the cool shot of the POV of the Mando flying away from the explosion on the giant alligator, and from the helmet view or whatever down. It's like, that was cool. That was a cool shot. I saw that used in a couple TV spots. It's like, yeah, that's a cool shot. I like that. So yeah, we saw the Children of the Watch back to Navarro with High Magistrate Karga now, and his little droids that carry his cape for him, which is honestly hilarious. I thought that was really funny. It's just, and you hear them tumble down the stairs at one point of the little steps carrying his cape for him. Karga definitely needs a friend, and I think he's trying to get Mando to stay, partially because he needs a marshal, as he states. But then at the same time, he's like, "Oh, it's so good to see you." It's like, he's genuinely really happy to see Mando, and it's like, "It's been a while. Please stay. I'm lonely and busy because all I've got are these droids, and Cara Dune got fired for saying something on Twitter. So please stay. I'm so lonely." I kind of got that implication from Grief there in this episode, where it's like, it feels like he's lonely. He's at the top. He is the leader of the planet, but he's a little bit lonely, and he'd love to have Mando back. And like, some of his old friends are murderous pirates, so he's kind of starved for friends right now. It's like, Mando's off playing daddy to Grogu and flying around the galaxy helping out Boba Fett. His other friends are murderous pirates that are wanting to get drunk in a school. That's not wise. And then the only other friends that he maybe would technically have, one of them is an old IG unit that got blown up and is being used for a statue. And then the other one is Gina Carano, who said something on Twitter and got fired. So, unfortunate. I feel like that was probably always in the script, and they didn't really have to write around it that much, because Rangers of the New Republic was a show they announced and have never talked about since, and it was, the implication is that this was going to be Cara Dune's show, and then now we're just not probably ever going to get that project, or if we do, it's going to be in a very different form than what it was originally going to be. So I feel like that, she was recruited by Special Forces. I feel like that was always going to be the case, because it was supposed to be her spinoff, and that's not why she's not in Mando season 3. But yeah, the spinoff's just not happening now, so she's just no longer on the show, which is and that's probably all the reference she's going to get. But it's like, it works. I think everyone knows why she's not there, so you could have just not mentioned her at all. But for the characters in the world, yeah, that explanation works fine. Yeah. Anyway, so moving on from that. So yeah, I find these pirates interesting. This Pirate King. What's his face, Mr. Swamp Face. I actually really love the design of this Pirate King guy, whose name I will eventually remember, because he's definitely coming back in the season. It felt very 80s Marvel Star Wars comics to me, with like where Jackson the Bunny Rabbit came from. If you don't know who that is, just Google search JAXXON Marvel Star Wars, and you'll figure out who he is. This pirate guy reminds me of the kind of that era of Star Wars, where people were just coming up with zany things and putting them in the comics because it was the tie-in material at the time, continuing their own adventures, and so people were just getting really creative with these wacky alien designs. And then some of them have stuck over the years, and then others have just never popped up again. So I feel like I think it's a practical effect. So like, they put a guy in a suit and like put all these little confetti streamers on his face or something like that, and give him a cane and I think a robot arm. So I think it's a really cool design. I like it. I'm curious what this species is. Because you know what would just be like really funny is if it was a species we've seen before, but then he's like so old and gross and doesn't bathe like a pirate or something that he's just got all this stuff growing off of him. Like if he's I don't think he's a Trandoshan, but it's like if he were like a Gungan or something, like I could see him being like a really gross Gungan, like a Boss Nass kind of larger Gungan, and that I think could actually be interesting and really funny. So yeah, he's definitely coming back later in the season. I'll be eager to see how that storyline plays out, and if he's gonna like do anything of consequence, or if he's just gonna be a constant nuisance kind of background villain. It was cool ship design. As far as like pirate ships for Star Wars goes, I think this is like my favorite design, because like you got some other like weak way saucers and stuff like that, but I think this is a really cool design, and I think it has some concept art roots from like Revenge of the Sith or something, because it looks familiar to me as something that's been used before, like concept art, but never has made it into canon. I kind of have that feeling about this. It's like, oh, that looked familiar, but I can't think of any actual Star Wars material it's popped up in before. Or maybe it's from like Legends or something. So yeah, cool design. I like it, especially like the gun turrets popping out and everything, like the gun ports on a pirate ship or something. That was cool. I liked that. Let's see here. Then I think a good thing to talk about is the Purrgil. The Purrgil showing up in hyperspace, which was really, really cool. I did enjoy that. That was a good. All the nerds know what this is, and it's making them go crazy. Meanwhile, everyone else that doesn't know is going, "Okay, it's space whales. What's the big deal?" Meanwhile, everyone else is yelling, "Ezra Bridger!" Getting excited. Probably for later this year when the Ahsoka show comes out. It's like, been waiting. I saw the other day on Twitter that it's been like 5 years since the Rebels finale and everything. So it's like, okay, we've been waiting 5 years. So are you going to get to this or not? But granted, there's another thing that they finally, a story arc that they finally got back to after 13 years on Bad Batch, which I'm not going to say exactly what it is here because it's for Bando spoilers, not Bad Batch spoilers. But if you know, you know. So it's like Star Wars is not afraid to keep us waiting for a while to eventually circle back to a particular storyline. So it's like the fact that we're getting possibly the Ezra Bridger, story again after just 5 years is honestly, it's like, you know what? Okay, it's like that's not that bad in comparison. So yeah, the Purrgil were really cool. I love Grogu just being able to dip in and out of the N1 and like go cuddle with Dad a little bit when he's tired and feeling a little sleepy in hyperspace and everything. That was just adorable. Grogu in general still just really adorable, like his ears moving around, and like Mando having that conversation with the armorer, and then he's asking her a really, really serious question, and she's about to answer, and then she's like, "Something's looking at me," and she just looks down, and Grogu's like, "Well, you gonna answer him or what?" And then he just moves his ears a little bit. It's like, oh, it's so cute. So Grogu's still fun. I'm very excited to see what antics he gets up to this season. Hopefully not eating any more of anyone's children, because that was a disturbing little habit he had last season. Just frogs and other small creatures. Stay away. And even then, he was very happy to see the Anzellans. It's like, bad baby, no, bad baby. So yeah, so the Anzellans showing up, that's like one of those things from the sequel trilogy that kind of finds its way into, been finding its way into other aspects of Star Wars canon outside of just the sequel trilogy, like Andor mentioned Canto Bight, and then here we have the Anzellans from Rise of Skywalker, of course Babu Frick, which everyone freaked out about for about 2 minutes and then promptly forgot about, like Rise of Skywalker in general. But yeah, I mean, for everyone going, oh, Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau are going to retcon the sequels, and Kathleen Kennedy is going to get fired, and all this other stuff. And it's like, well, we're not gonna have to worry about the sequels ever again. They fixed Luke Skywalker. They're gonna fix Luke Skywalker because they're real fans and all of that stuff. It's like, I wonder how they feel whenever Andor mentions Canto Bight or the Anzellans show up in Mando, which is a pretty obvious tie into those other pieces of media. I mean, I guess their excuse could be like it's just like drawing from legends in the EU. It's funny how I say that as if they're two separate things when it's just two different names for the same thing. But you know what I mean. It's like it's like them drawing from legends. They're taking inspiration. Blah, 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 blah. That's probably their excuse now that I think about it. But I mean, I see that as a pretty big confirmation of, yeah, those movies are canon. Just FYI, like them or hate them, those movies are canon. So you have to respect them as canon. So anyway, it's not to start a Star Wars sequels debate again, but I don't think I've really started a debate on the Star Wars sequels, but it's the internet, so comment your opinions on the Star Wars sequels below. No, don't do that. Let's not do that. Like I said, I don't want to start that debate down in my comments section. So yeah, but because I liked Babu Frick fine in The Rise of Skywalker. It's like the voice was kind of fun. And, he was fine for the one scene. I don't think they needed to shove him in our face and have him pop back up again at the end in the Y-Wing with Zori Bliss and do the hey again or whatever. But, having them show up here, like expanding on them a little bit, that's cool. I like that. No, the Boken. It's a droid voodoo. Droid the Boken. It's like, he says the droid's busted. It's like, yeah, thank you, Grief. I think we all got that. I mean, Mando didn't somehow. It's like, do you speak Huttese? So that's fun. But of course, so I'm going to be quoting, oh, bad baby. No squeeze, bad baby. I'm going to be quoting that when it comes to our dog so much because he doesn't really like cuddles. So it's like, you try to give him a little squeeze. And it's like, no squeeze, bad baby. That's gonna be fun. There is something about that little high squeaky voice that is kind of fun. It's kind of like a Stitch or a Minions or something, something like that. So yeah, end of the episode ends Bo-Katan on her fortress, on her home planet, whose name I can never remember, but I heard him say it, and I'm like, aha, we're getting Bo-Katan right here in the first episode. Because it's not Narvala. I'm thinking of Arvala 7, which is that planet from the first season of Mando, where Queel lived. It's NA something. It's not Naboo. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's in the Mandalore system. That's all that counts. So yeah, Bo-Katan right off the bat. It's really interesting how we get like a different flavor of Bo-Katan every time we see her, and that's not always to the fault of the character. It's also sometimes of the way that we, the different points of when we're seeing the character, but because Star Wars does things out of order so often, it's like, because the first time we see her, she's a straight up terrorist. I don't think anyone's going to deny that. When she debuted in season 4 Clone Wars in 2012, or yeah, that sounds right, 2012-ish. Then still a terrorist in season 5, but kind of being a reformed terrorist because she leaves Death Watch. Death Watch splinters in half, and I guess afterward, then that's where the Children of the Watch come from. Then I guess the next time we see her is Rebels, where she's very broken down and defeated, and she doesn't really want to fight anymore. Like she still kind of is to defend the Mandalorians somewhat, but she's not willing to accept a leadership role. She's more at that point ready to get behind someone that has the Darksaber and charge into battle with them than lead herself. And then through Rebels, then she is convinced to lead. So then we fast forward to Mando season 2, where now she's lost the Darksaber, is trying to atone for that, but is still trying to lead her people and still step up into that leadership role that she was convinced from Sabine and Ezra and Ursa to take on. And of course, then that puts her in in a precarious situation when Din Djarin accidentally beats Moff Gideon and takes the sword for himself, and he has no idea what it is, and it's just super awkward for her. But then, after that, we flash back to the Clone Wars in Season 7, because the show got canceled and revived years later, so we could finish up those final couple arcs that were important. So then in Season 7, she's like, I want Maul off my planet, and I don't care what I have to blow up. She's very much in vengeful rage mode, which is not exactly where she is. It's a similar state, but it's not exactly quite where she is in Mando Season 2, where there is strategy, there is planning, but it's in Clone Wars Season 7, it is more just she is a bomb ready to go off, and she's ready, kick the next person in the teeth she sees if they're wearing red and black. So that is a different take on Bo-Katan. And then now we have, once again, kind of down on her luck, defeated Bo-Katan, but she seems but this is the first time, I think, we're seeing her as resentful rather than just straight up angry. Like, at this point, she does not like Din Djarin. And she's not happy with her situation at all. There is this kind of seething anger underneath what she was saying in this episode. It's not quite the same as in Clone Wars Season 7. It's not quite what we saw her in Mando Season 2 either. So it must be a great joy for Katie Sackhoff, because she gets to play these different facets of Bo-Katan left and right and front and center, all over the place. For those of us that have been watching out of order this entire time, it gets a little bonkers. It's like you even kind of have to think to yourself, is this a character that even has consistency? But then you have to think about where it is in the timeline and when it actually takes place. And okay, if we were to watch this in chronological order, I feel like seeing the kind of ebb and flow and the rise and fall of the character and everything, I think everything with her character is lining up and it is making sense. The one little thing I have of Bo-Katan is like, was she okay with the idea of killing her, of Pre Vizsla, like killing her sister, or was that something that she was going to stop, or was she gonna kill Pre Vizsla and take over Death Watch for herself and spare her sister? It's like because it's like, she was your sister, wasn't she? I feel like that was a late minute script change. And they did, and because someone thought about that, and it's like, ooh, that's a good idea. But everything prior to that hadn't really been explained. We still didn't really know who Bo-Katan was that much at the time. So the idea that Satine was Bo-Katan's sister, not exactly set up very, very well. But I mean, Star Wars has done that before. It's like Leia's like, oh, my brother. Somehow I always knew you were my brother. Then why'd you kiss him back on Hoth? No, you didn't think that. You never knew that somewhere in the back of your mind the entire time. You were very confused at one point. No, red flags. So that's not necessarily something new that Star Wars has done. They've done it before. So yeah, that is like the one thing about Bo-Katan I still want to know. It's like, where was she on the killing her sister thing? Because in Rebels, she seems very sorrowful that her sister's dead and has been dead all this time. And she's older in Rebels compared to Clone Wars. It's been 20 years or so, so she's had time to mellow and whatever. But I do kind of wonder if, and she didn't do it herself. Maul did it to get to Obi-Wan. So it's not like she was even directly related to her sister's death. Her sister's death happened regardless of Bo-Katan's actions, really. So it's like, what are her feelings on that? Yeah, it's like, clearly she feels sorrow for the loss of her sister. Now it's like, did she want to kill her sister at one point, and then it was after someone else did it, she realized how wrong she was? I would like to see something like that, where it's like, but I don't know. I think we may be primed in this season of Mandalorian to get some of that kind of retroactively. It's like, I would like to have heard some of that in Clone Wars itself. Maybe we can get like a Tales of the Jedi and like another episode of Ahsoka and Bo-Katan hanging out and being friends for a little bit before the Siege of Mandalore, and she could express some of her feelings there, more closer to the time that they actually happened. But you know, if she has like this big emotional diatribe to Din Djarin about how she needs to lead Mandalore to like avenge her sister, it's like, and then like it's like, especially if all these different Mando clans link up together, and the armor can go, "Didn't you want to kill your sister at one point?" She goes, "And I was wrong, because when she actually died, I felt so bad about it, because she was my sister, even if we disagreed politically," or something like that. So it's I feel like we might be primed to get some of that juicy stuff in this season. So I will very much look forward to it. So yeah, decent episode. What you know, wasn't a blow your socks off type episode, but I think we might be getting that going forward. So yeah, it's good to have the Mandalorian back, and I will be looking forward to like the next 7 weeks or whatever, however many episodes there are. I think there's like 8 or 9 or something. So yeah, I think that's going to be pretty much it for this review. So thank you for watching. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that great stuff. Remember to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. And now I've completely lost my usual spiel that, you know, it's just a usual, you know, it's just an autopilot, you go through it. But you know, you watch YouTube, you know what the whole thing is at the end of every YouTube video. So just do all that, and I'll see you once again for another Mando Monday next week. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you then. Bye.